people who ran into the girl that rejected you in the past, how did it go?
She rejected me again, this time for a home loan.
Still no interest then?
Not exactly a rejection, but after going off to college, my then GF from high school told her ultra-religious mother that we'd been fooling around. Her mother had her break up with me and confessed to their entire church what she'd been doing with me. A few years ago I heard from a friend in my hometown and he told me that my ex-GF had never done anything after that. She went to college, but it was a local school and she never moved out of her mum's house. She never got a job in her field and still, 20 years later, has the same job she had in high school, not just the same employer, the same position. She never even dated again after her mum broke us up. It's like she's been stuck in stasis since that time.
Abusive parents are the worst. I feel so sad for that poor woman, no one deserves that. For whatever reason I feel sad for people who don't get to choose their life or don't feel able to choose their life.
Not really rejected but dumped and re-met repeatedly. I met a girl in a bar and told her a big tale about how I was hitchhiking around Scotland tomorrow in an attempt to seem like I had some kind of personality and dynamism. It worked and we spent the night together, and during that drunken wild night she decided to accompany me the next day as I went hitchhiking, for a week, around Scotland. So I did what any horny 19-year-old would do, I agreed we should totally do it. Two strangers drunkenly sharing a one-man tent, sleeping in lay bys and on traffic roundabouts. Of course it was a effing total disaster. Too many ridiculous stories to tell. But 4 days later she'd had enough and rode off across a loch with a handsome ex-forces guy to visit an island. A euphemism. I went to a bar and when I woke up her stuff was gone from the tent. I didn't see her again until 15 years later. I bought a house. The neighbor opposite with 3 kids, lawyer husband, badly parked Jaguar blocking the road, it's her. That first day, in 1 second we locked eyes and knew we had to handle this like adults. So, for the next 10 years we avoided ever speaking or acknowledging each other's existence. Luckily 3 years ago we resolved awkwardness as she took the gracious option of moving house. Awkwardness resolved.
Greater than in 1 second we locked eyes and knew we had to handle this like adults. I lost it at this.
She was my first love, and she broke my heart. I let it haunt me. About 4 or 5 years later, we actually started dating again, just long enough to realize we'd both grown in different directions. There was no there anymore. All we ever really had was that we were young together. Which was great, but that time was in the past. It was a very therapeutic revelation. Set me free.
She rejected me again.
This is life. This is how you know you are not in the Matrix.
Unless we are, and she's just programmed to reject me.
I went to a concert to see one of my favorite bands. A girl noticed a tattoo I had on my side and showed me a similar one that she had. We talked a bit in between bands until I asked for her number to try to talk to her some. She said no, she wasn't cool with that, and I said alright, no worries, and enjoyed the rest of the concert. Few months pass by and the band rolls around again, and there she is again. Didn't try asking again because she already said no once before. We see tattoos, hug and how each other are doing and make small conversations. Enjoy the concert and go our separate ways. Few months pass by again and the band comes through. See her again, except this time we know each other without having to compare tattoos. We enjoy the show, and as we're leaving I notice she's basically trapped between 2 guys. She sees me and yells, "Hey, I've been looking for you." Ready to head back to the Airbnb. So I said, "I've been trying to find you too." "Yeah, I'm good to go." Walked her the few blocks back to where she was staying. We had a nice chat during the walk, and asked if she needs anything before I left since I had a good drive back home. And that was it. We talk at the occasional shows we see each other at and on IG from time to time, but I'm glad she felt comfortable enough knowing that she could trust me to make sure she was safe.
I met this woman near Christmas of 1999 or 2000, had a wonderful night of chatting, dancing, just a perfect night. I live near her, so I drop her off in the taxi. She said she was leaving shortly for Australia, so wasn't looking for anything major, but to give her a call later in the week and we'd go do something. She never responded. It was a wonderful night though, and something I always fondly remembered. Fast forward to 2019, I meet this woman on Tinder. We have a great brunch and end it with a hug and a kiss. Start seeing each other regularly. After a couple of weeks I drop her off at her mum's house. Looks so familiar, it's the same house I dropped that woman off 19 years ago. This woman I'm dating is that woman. Who doesn't remember it, doesn't remember me at all. Such a wonderful insight into how there's two sides to every tale. We didn't last long as a couple, but it was really interesting to be able to cross off one of those that got away.
Plot twist. She doesn't remember you because it wasn't her, it was her mother.
Went on a Tinder date with a girl who had just moved to the city. Date went all right, no major sparks or anything, but seeing as though she was new to the city I offered to meet up again, which she initially seemed interested in. A couple weeks later we planned to meet up, but at the last minute cancelled, saying that she was all itchy and thinks she might have the chicken pox. I thought it was a bit strange, a 25 years old getting chicken pox, but who am I to judge? I told her not to worry, and MSG me when she's feeling better to reschedule. Now with no date and a free Friday evening, I hit up a few friends who are meeting up at one of their apartments for drinks and board games. As I'm on my way there, my buddy MSGs the group, he's got a friend in town for the weekend and wants to know if it's okay if he comes along with another friend who just moved to the city. Not thinking anything of it, we all agree that the more the merrier. I arrive at the apartment, and as soon as I walk through the door, who is there sitting on the carpet? None other than Chickenpox Girl, the friend of a friend who had just moved to the city. It all clicks. It takes her a second to realize, but when she does, she instantly drops her glass of red wine all over a white rug. I've never seen anyone look so embarrassed. I make a quick joke that she had the fastest case of chickenpox in the world and she hastily made her exit. All my friends were wondering what was going on. When she left and I finally filled them in, we all had a good laugh, and enjoyed the rest of the night and the memory of the Chickenpox Girl.
Of all the excuses she could have picked, she picked chickenpox. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I can't go out tonight because I'm dealing with a bad case of dropsy.
She stood me up on Valentine's Day 3 years ago. She's now my next door neighbor. Talked to her a couple times, but we aren't friends or anything.
Sounds like a good rom-com plot. We met again after 6 years and became good friends.
Quick and wholesome. Necessary after some of these other responses. Smiling face with tear.
Some of those stories are really dark.
We bumped into each other buying lawn darts at Walmart. She was pregnant and in Cookie Monster PJs, and I was in what were essentially male booty shorts, as my friend's swim trunks fit too short. We were literally both buying packs of lawn darts. We laughed, but both knew deep down inside that Walmart run was embarrassing AF.
Do people leave their self-respect at home in the closet when they decide to shop at Walmart?
Yes.
I saw a girl from high school at a reunion. She never rejected me because I never had the nerve to ask. At the reunion she confessed that she had a crush on me. You miss all the shots you never take.
That would kill me on the spot, I think. All that time wondering and never knowing until years later. That would definitely kill me. My dad met my mom at a local bar. At the time he was hanging out with some friends that apparently seemed dirtbaggy. So she gave him the number of a 7 to 11. 4 years later they are both at the same bar again. He thinks, oh, she looks familiar. He walks over and says, so how is 711 doing? To what she apparently laughed very hard at and then gave him her real number. Lol.
Played the long game, I see.
I was buying a sandwich. She didn't look at me. I didn't say anything to her. I ate my sandwich. Good sandwich.
Good thing the sandwich was good.
Saw her at Target about 2 years later. Gave her the head nod when you make eye contact with a random dude. Edit. Clarifying that I gave her the down nod.
Sup. Edit. Commented before the edit.
We both pretended we didn't see each other cause deep down we're both awkward people and we both remember how each of us handled the situation immaturely and badly.
Oh, same thing, same thing. I was coming back from my girlfriend. I boarded a bus in a rush after running towards the bus stop, and when I was catching breath I raised my head and saw my ex like half a meter in front of me. We totally ignored each other, but both clearly knew who the other person is. So effing awkward.
Went into pharmacy to get an oral enema to prepare for my colonoscopy. As the pretty pharmacist asked me about the specifics, we slowly recognized each other. It had been about 30 years since I had cried asking her not to break up with me. Sigh.
The pretty, shy girl from my high school told me she had a crush on me back then. When I was picking up a prescription for my dying stepdad. Weird timing.
She dodged this bullet.
Can't say it was a rejection. I was in 9th grade, she was in 11th grade. She wasn't going to date a younger guy, but she definitely liked the attention I gave her. Years later, I see her at a gathering. I'm there with my GF. She catches me when I'm alone. She asks how my relationship is going and if I wanted her number. It was awkward.
The most mature response there is to decline the number without commenting on your current relationship. But the most satisfying response is, pretty bad actually. I think we're about to break up, but no thanks.
I'm pretty sure I told her to just look me up on FB or something. That was my go-to in these kind of situations. Best part is, I don't use FB rolling on the floor laughing rolling on the floor laughing rolling on the floor laughing.
I ran into her picking out wedding rings with her wife. It wasn't too awkward, but I was a complete creep earlier. My friends and family were encouraging me to just keep trying. I look back on my late teens and early 20s with a variety of cringe.
We went out together, had a fun time, went back to her place. And I got sick and puked in her toilet. Ended up having to crash the night, asked for a kiss in the morning and she just double finger guns and was like, no dude, you puked. We didn't talk for 3 years. We're dating now, lol.
Right finger cool, right finger you puked.
Literally exactly how it looked. Lol.
We started dating again, then she dumped me out of the blue. Again. Then when I decided to move to another state she tried to reconnect on Instagram and desperately apologized for the way she treated me and wants to visit me when she comes out here. No effing way. I really hope when I'm 35 I'm not as lost in life as she is. Edit, since this is getting a lot traction from people in a similar situation. Please don't let this make you become bitter like it has to me.
So shortly after my high school GF and I broke up, my friend introduced me to a friend of his through Facebook. I was incredibly desperate, short on social skills, and generally pretty depressed. I was under all the right conditions to unhealthily latch onto this girl he introduced me to. We started out with texting, just making small talk and being polite, but when I asked if she wanted to meet up she would always make some excuse or stop replying, generally the latter. I was a dumb kid though, so I took none of her hint and kept it. Looking back afterwards, it was easy to see how pushy I was and how anyone would interpret it as creepy. I finally let things go for a while after I had flowers delivered to her at work. I know, I'm cringing while thinking about it. She didn't really seem to respond to the flowers, so I moved on. About a year later I got a new job at her place of employment and we started working together. By now I'd built up some confidence and learned some restraint. Surprisingly, she was still friendly with me. We would hang out some, and occasionally when the talk would turn flirty she wouldn't shut it down. She became my best friend that year. We had so many little fun moments together, and although we never dated, I made some of the best romantic memories of my life with her. One night on the way home from work, her car had a blowout. Knowing I was nearby, she called me and asked for help. So I came by, jacked up her car, and changed her tire for her. It's dumb, I know, but we were both young and it was this cheesy romantic movie moment where I had come to her rescue and saved the day. She and I would talk about it for years afterward on how special a memory it was. Our timing never lined up though, and she met a man that December and married him 2 years later. I met my wife and we've been together for over 10 years now. A couple of years ago, the girl from my story passed away. Our last words spoken to each other weren't the best, unfortunately. I think we each thought we were mad at each other for drifting apart. Now I just wish I could go back and tell her that she was one of my dearest friends and I'm sorry for whatever part one played in us drifting apart. Shortly after her headstone was placed, I bought a little wooden toy car jack and placed it on her grave.
Never been rejected, boys. Asterisk, I'm too cowardly to ask lol. I fell hard for this lady in university. She did not feel the same way and I was emotionally damaged for a long time. I really liked her and it crushed me that the feeling wasn't mutual. Fast forward 3 years, I get better, snap out of my depression and realize I was in the wrong for the way I ended things. She really liked me as a friend and genuinely cared for me. I reconnect with her and realize she's an awesome friend. She goes through some traumatic experiences and I'm there to support her, but because of this openness I start falling for her again. I'm ready to tell her that I don't think it's healthy for me to be friends like this and that I'm not angry she doesn't feel the same way. A couple days before I'm about to tell her, she says she's falling in love with me. We both realize we have a messed up history together but nonetheless give it a shot. We've been married for 3 years now.
Good on you for realizing that it's unhealthy to stay friends with someone you keep falling for. Even better news that it worked out.
I ran into one who happened to be going through a divorce. My younger self was like, good for you, you missed out, etc., but seeing her like that actually hurt. I am married with kids, so it wasn't anything like wanting to be with her, but man, it hurt. She was certain he was cheating on her but had no proof and the divorce was going bad. I said she could always text me for support, my number hasn't changed, and she said neither has hers. So I'm like, good of you to keep your number with marriage, etc., and she said it's still her plan. I told her to get the text messages from her carrier for his number. Wasn't hard to put together the woman she suspected was the one he was texting every morning, every night and all day long.
My best friend from HS posted a picture after he ran a marathon. Some girl commented on it trying to get his attention and he was quite harsh rejecting her. When I saw who it was the one who rejected and humiliated me in middle school over 15 years before this. Peeked a bit into her profile and let's just say time didn't treat her well.
I last bumped into her around 15 years after graduating high school, which itself was about 15 years ago. I'm old. She'd moved away but was back in town and called me to see if I wanted to get together. Although I was crazy about her back in school, she was never interested in me, so our relationship was strictly the friendly sort. And we remained friends for a decade or so until she moved away and I lost touch with her. When she called, I thought it would be a great idea to meet up with her, if just to see what she'd been up to. I was in a relationship at the time, but I hadn't had any romantic interest in this girl for an awful long time, so I wasn't exactly worried about anything happening. And nothing did. We went out to a bar, she had some drinks, we caught up and that was that. But then on the way home she asked me a question that really threw me for a loop. She wanted to know why we'd never dated before. I thought it was a joke at first. I'd asked this girl out an obnoxious amount of times, likely why I ended up being friend-zoned in the first place. But she was serious. She wanted to know why I'd never asked her out. I sort of laughed it off, totally aware of the implications, which is impressive considering how socially inept I can be. However, instead of being excited that the girl I'd pursued all throughout high school was suddenly interested in me, I couldn't help but feel hurt. I'd bottled up my feelings for her a long time ago, and pretending like I never had those feelings was downright painful. I never spoke to her again after that night. So I have no idea how things turned out for her. And it doesn't matter, because I'm happy. I married the girl I was dating at the time and we've got a wonderful life together. I've never second-guessed my choice that night, and never will. I wouldn't trade away the life I have for anything in the world.
I ran into her at a restaurant while I was working, she was on a date. That poo hurted.
On a reverse this happened to me but with the guy who rejected me. He was on a date. And I was the waitress. Don't feel too bad for me though. He rejected me very politely but I wasn't willing to accept it, and that's my own problem.
She came out as gay and broke my heart when we were 19. Took me a couple of years to get over it. I ran into her 10 years later in town. Wasn't too awkward then. She had a long-term partner, as did I, so had a brief chat and went on with our lives. We bumped into each other again a couple of times over the next few years. Some of the same friends, etc. Then a mutual friend died in an accident. We had a get-together a couple of months later with many folks who knew him, including my ex. We spent pretty much the whole night chatting. Turns out her partner had died recently from cancer. Effing shame. She was a lovely woman. I'm happily married now and my ex knows this, so there was no flirting or anything like that. End of the night came when she told me, we were both quite drunk at this point, that we wasn't sure she was gay. I promptly made my excuses and left. Really didn't feel like continuing with any of the thoughts that brought up. Went home. Carried on with my life. She died last year. Depression led to her shutting herself off from her friends and family. The loss of her partner and general frailty led to her becoming malnourished and generally ill. Still effing miss her.
Jesus Christ, so much death. I'm so sorry for your losses.
Not exactly rejected the first time around. But we ran into each other randomly years later and she's my wife now.
Back around 11th grade, I had the biggest crush on a girl a class ahead of me. On paper, it never should have worked. I was a bit of a nerd by choice and somewhat of a loner by no choice of mine. She was the star of the basketball team and was the homecoming queen and all that. But we had a class together and really got along great, and there was a lot of chemistry there. We hung out constantly for a whole semester and had a great time. Right before Christmas break things finally went great one night, and I think we both realized how we felt about each other. Except that didn't last long. A lot of the other popular girls started making fun of her and giving her a hard time for liking the class weirdo, and she pretty much ghosted me and didn't talk to me anymore. That hurt bad. It was my first real crush on someone that actually liked me back, so to have that happen at a tender age like that was an absolute dagger to the heart. Around 3 or 4 months later, I went on a school trip with just a few other kids. Another girl in the same class ahead of me seemed super cool, and I was really impressed when she was looking through a vintage store and was interested in some old band stuff and bought an old Aerosmith concert poster. I remember her shouting at me on the bus and thinking I really should talk to her and that she seemed super cool. Well, flash forward about 20 years and that same Aerosmith poster is hanging in our garage. Since then, we've traveled the world, been to a lot of music festivals, and have had a ton of adventures together. If that homecoming queen hadn't dumped me after leading me on for so many months, I'd have not met my wife of over 15 years now. 11th grade me had no way of knowing that at the time. My old crush is doing well, we still keep in touch on Facebook and have run into each other a few times at class reunions and stuff like that. I don't think there's any animosity at all, maybe just some natural well-meaning awkwardness. She's married and has 2 kids and has done great in her career, and I am really happy for her and don't have any hard feelings about it, especially considering how things turned out.
What the F kind of emotionally mature bullpoo is this? How dare you act like a normal, rational human being and look at the bright side. S. Glad you met your dream girl, been with mine for 11 years now.
Rejected me because I was a geek. Married to me now because I'm a geek. Edit, wow, I'm gobsmacked. Do the kids still say that? I ain't saying she's a gold digger.
I was 15 and she had just turned 17, so she wasn't interested in me since I was younger than her. In hindsight, it's understandable considering she was about to graduate. It also didn't help that I lacked self-confidence, despite, in hindsight again, having no real reason to feel the way I did at the time. We did remain friends though, went to concerts together, etc., but platonically. As she started her young adult life, we eventually lost contact, particularly when I also began mine as well, and our lives took us in different directions. Probably about 10-ish years later after contact loss, we reconnected via FB and hung out again like we did when we remained friends. I could tell as time went on, she was giving me all the signals, it was impossible to miss, and these were the most glaring signals possible short of saying, I want you. But I just wasn't interested in her anymore. Having to force myself to act like I didn't have a crush on her when I was younger while being strictly platonic friends really worked, and I no longer felt anything for her. Nothing sparked when she would drop the signals, and I mean nothing. It was a complete 180. She reacted very harshly to me, stating I just wanted to be friends, and she refused. The double standard was so vivid it was incredible. She asked me to set aside my feelings to just be friends when we were young, but when I asked her to do the same when we were older, it was just simply too much for her.
I lost 100 pounds and was in the gym and looked really good. She told me as much, and we talked for a bit about our kids and where our lives had went. She and I remained friends after she rejected me. She was always very nice to me and I had no reason to have any animosity towards her. I wished her well, kissed her on the cheek and moved on. It was a nice interaction.
She told me I wasn't the husband type. Saw her about 5 years later at a friend's birthday party. Introduced her to my wife and daughter.
Comeback of the century.
I had an ugly duckling phase in early high school. Acne. My teeth were too big for my face, and my arms and legs resembled that of a baby giraffe. There was a girl, let's call her M, that I had a serious crush on. When homecoming came around, I worked up every bit of courage to ask her to go to the dance with me. I did it one-on-one to try and save myself some embarrassment if she said no. Instead of just saying no, she loudly exclaimed she would never be caught dead with someone like me, and then proceeded to tell everyone how she rejected me. 10 years later, I go into a department store to pick up some new clothes and she's working the area I happened to be in. I didn't recognize her, but she recognized me. I don't consider myself attractive, but I'm definitely not the ugly duckling I once was. She said as much and started talking about how great of friends we used to be. I didn't say much. The conversation of grabbing lunch to catch up came up, and that's when I halted the conversation and reminded her how cruel she was to me and left her standing there.
My man.
It's been 3 years since she rejected me. I didn't confess in time. In these 3 years I started dating with other gorgeous girl, thought that I found my soulmate, was preparing everything to propose in February, but oh well, we broke up. She also have been through a lot, broke up with her BF at the time and here we are now, dating. Life is a funny thing.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.